I still remember that afternoon, the first day of my official retirement. Finally, it's time to live for myself, I said to myself, smiling as I pulled my bank card from my wallet. I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I smiled slightly. I'm Claire, 63. I've officially retired from my accounting job for the past 40 years. I called Gregory, my family's financial manager, as I walked towards the bank. Can you guess what I'm doing today? I'm going to check my account. Go ahead, he smiled, his voice as even as ever. There's enough for a few fun trips. I believed him. But when I saw the $142,670 on the screen, my heart sank. No way, I whispered. 10 seconds later, I dialed the bank. Can you print me a copy of my statement for the last 5 years? I need to review it immediately. Little did I know what I was about to discover would change the rest of my life. I sat on the bank bench, holding the thick statement in my hand. The numbers danced before my eyes, but one thing was clear. For 30 years, a $3,000 withdrawal had been made every month like clockwork. Not a single month had been missed. Just as I had expected, nearly $1.1 million had disappeared from my account. My throat was dry, and I walked quickly out of the bank, feeling like I was having a nightmare. I couldn't believe that Gregory, my devoted, quiet husband, could be doing something shady behind my back. When I got home, I rushed into his small office, a place I rarely visited. It was as neat as ever, with lists covering thick notebooks, meticulously recorded month by month, year by year. I pulled down a notebook from 1994, my hand shaking. I flipped through a few pages, stopping when I saw the black ink that read, "Support for Vanessa and Lily, $500. In the lower right corner, Gregory had added a small asterisk, the mark he used to mark priority items. I flipped quickly back to recent years. The amounts had increased over time, $1,000, then $2,000, to $3,000 a month. The most recent page from last month had the same line, with only the words slightly changed. Living assistants, Vanessa and Lily. I felt my heart squeeze. Gregory came home, just as I was still sitting in the middle of the room. He saw the notebook in my hand, and his eyes froze for a moment. "Claire, what are you doing with my notebook?" he asked, his voice wary. I didn't answer right away. I held up the notebook, my hands shaking, but my voice firm. "Gregory, who is Vanessa? And Lily? Why have you been sending them money from my account for the past 30 years? He froze for a moment, then sighed softly. "Claire, that was a long time ago. You don't understand the circumstances. Vanessa is an old friend who went through some very difficult times. Lily is her daughter, and she also has a congenital heart defect." I was speechless. "And you've been supporting them with my money?" "Right. It's not what you think, Claire. It's not." I jumped up, pointing at the book. "Every penny I've worked for the past 40 years. Every penny I saved up thinking I was saving for my old age, and you've been using it to support another woman and her child." Gregory looked at me, his face still calm, but his voice hard. "Claire, you just helped them. They have no one. I have you, my son. A good job." "Do you think that's a good reason?" I choked. "We borrowed money from the neighbors to pay for Jacob's hospital bills when he broke his leg. At that time, you said, the money in the account hasn't been withdrawn. It was all a lie, right, Gregory?" Gregory was silent, then said softly, "I just don't want you to worry." "Don't want me to worry?" I laughed, tears falling down my cheeks. "Or don't you want me to know that you've been cheating on me for 40 years? Gregory, he was about to step forward, but I stepped back. In that moment, I saw clearly, not a repentant man, but one who had just been caught and was trying to hide it again. "Gregory, from today on, I am no longer the woman who takes care of everything for you. I will make this clear, down to every penny." I left the room, empty, my heart pounding. This house, this marriage, everything suddenly became incredibly strange. I couldn't sleep that night. The whole house seemed to have turned into a strange entity, familiar yet cold. The family photos on the wall suddenly became fake, the memories gray. I had been living in a sweet, fake shell without even knowing it. Early the next morning, I opened Gregory's ledgers, flipping through them as if I were performing surgery on my own marriage. It was all there. Every payment to Vanessa over 3 decades, complete with dates, numbers, and even notes as if he were recording a time clock. Not just the help allowances, I saw entries like Lily's tuition, birthday expenses, rent March. I sat there reading the ledger until noon, my mind reeling. All the bonuses, the overtime, the portion of my income one had hidden away from my family, all gone. But what made me choke was a photo clipped to the page in 2017. Gregory, Vanessa, and a young woman about Jacob's age, smiling brightly together at a park. I had never seen that smile on my husband's face when he was with me. I held the photo in my hand, feeling like I was uncovering a secret. That evening, I invited Jacob to my house, saying it was important. As soon as he entered, I handed him the notebook and the photo, my hands no longer shaking, just empty. Jacob looked at me, his expression changing. "When did you find out about this?" I asked, my voice strangely calm. He avoided my eyes, hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "About 3 years ago. But I thought it was just help, just money, Mom." I smiled faintly. Just money. That sentence was like a knife, twisting my heart. "What did you call that woman?" I asked. Jacob was silent. I asked again, "What did you call her?" "Aunt Vanessa." Jacob's voice seemed to disappear into the air. I nodded slowly. No more words were needed. Everything was so clear. While I buried myself in work, worked hard to pay off debts, and sacrificed to give Jacob a solid foundation, my husband built a different family behind my back, with the silent acceptance of my own child. That evening, I made an appointment with a lawyer. I no longer wanted to hear any more excuses from Gregory. The truth had no room for excuses. Every number he had carefully recorded for the past 30 years would now be evidence of his own betrayal. I walked into the lawyer's office with a large file bag. Every page of statements, every note from Gregory, every money transfer receipt, all had been clearly marked by me with colored paper. I no longer cried, no longer hurt. Only one goal remained, to get back what was mine. My lawyer, Mrs. Hendricks, a widow experienced, only glanced at the carefully folded documents. "With the money withdrawn without consent, plus the assets in your name, we can request a high-level division of assets and force him to repay them. We will file a lawsuit this week." I left the office with a lighter step. The sky over Seattle was still overcast, but I no longer felt so foggy. I had a path, and this time I would walk it for myself. That evening, I returned home and placed the divorce papers on the dining room table, the very spot where Gregory usually sat. When he returned, the smell of fast food from the paper bag in his hand mixed with the air of the house, the smell of frying oil, the smell of betrayal. He stopped when he saw me. His eyes were fixed on the paper, clearly printed with the words, "Petition for divorce." "Claire, what is this?" he asked softly. I stood up, my eyes straight ahead. "This is the termination. I filed, and I will see it through to the end." Gregory put down the bag of food, his face crumpling as if he had been doused with cold water. Can we talk before we do anything rash?" I laughed coldly. "You've lived 2 lives for 30 years without speaking to me. Why should everything slow down now so I can get a handle on things?" He stepped closer, his voice urgent. "Claire, you're acting like I'm betraying you, but this is just money help. Vanessa's house." "Don't say one more Vanessa, and I'll kick you out tonight," I interrupted, my voice cutting. Gregory froze. My words seemed to strike a blow to his complacency. For years, I had been the soft one, the one who backed down to keep the peace. But now I wasn't behind. I began to change everything. I removed him from all the joint accounts. I changed my password, closed my card, and revoked my authorization. Gregory reacted violently, but I didn't give him time to react. He yelled at me, banged on my door, and demanded to talk sense, but it was too late. One night, I heard a loud banging in the living room. When I came out, I saw Gregory tearing up the divorce papers I had left behind. The white pieces of paper were scattered all over the floor, mixed with the food he had just thrown out of the plastic bag. "Do you want to make such a big deal out of it?" he shouted, his face red. "How do you plan to start a new life after getting divorced at your age? You will die alone, Claire." I walked over, picked up the pieces of paper, folded them neatly, and didn't even look at him. It's better than living with someone I can't trust, can't respect. You didn't cheat on me because you loved Vanessa. You cheated on me because you despised me. He stood there, frozen. I looked at him for a long time. There was no more anger, just emptiness. For years I had loved an imaginary figure, a loving husband living a simple life. But the truth was he was just a selfish man disguised as a good man. In the divorce court on a cold morning in early March, I arrived early, carrying a heavy file. Copies of Gregory's bank statements, his detailed accounting journals, my recordings of conversations, and even photos of money orders and gifts he had sent Vanessa over the years. I had prepared for this battle, not just with paperwork, but with determination. I would not let anyone, not even someone I had slept with, deny the truth and gloss over the pain I had endured. Gregory arrived a few minutes after me. He was wearing a gray suit, and Vanessa was with him. Light makeup, a long cream-colored coat. She held his hand tightly, her eyes glancing at me with a hint of irony and contempt. Jacob, standing behind me, said nothing. I had no idea who she was talking about, but that didn't matter anymore. In the courtroom, my lawyer, Miss Hendricks, spoke clearly and sharply. She began by insisting that the account that had been overdrawn for 30 years was my own, with my salary transferred directly from the company, without Gregory's consent. Then came the undeniable evidence. Gregory's notebook recording every single deposit made to Vanessa and Lily, which amounted to more than $1.2 million. The expenses were not related to living expenses, but included tuition, birthday gifts, house repairs for Vanessa, travel tickets, even dental bills for her daughter. I remained silent throughout, my eyes glued to Gregory. He looked down at the floor, not daring to raise his head. Vanessa bit her lip, occasionally whispering something to my lawyer. She no longer had the arrogant look she once had. She now looked like a cat caught in the rain. But I didn't feel sorry for her. When Gregory's turn came, he tried to soften his tone. I never intended to hurt Claire. I just wanted to help an old friend in her time of need. My lawyer immediately countered. Then why not use the joint assets? Why quietly withdraw money from my client's personal account for 3 decades without notice? Vanessa was called to the stand. She fumbled, evading, saying that the payments were not support, they were gifts, that Gregory had done it willingly, that they were just friends, and that Claire shouldn't have any idea. A statement that silenced the court for a moment. We never intended to hurt Claire, Vanessa said, looking directly at me. If you feel betrayed, I apologize, but feelings aren't always clear. I didn't respond. I exchanged a glance with Ms. Hendricks, enough for her to deliver the final blow. A screenshot from Gregory's personal Facebook page, where he had publicly posted a photo of himself with Vanessa with the caption, "Old love, finally back in the right place." It was proof that the relationship was more than just a favor. The trial lasted nearly 5 hours. When the judge pronounced his sentence, I couldn't hear every word, but I understood the gist. The marriage is officially over. All funds that were improperly withdrawn must be returned. I retained full control of the house, savings accounts, and retirement assets. Gregory slumped in his chair, head bowed, and Vanessa stood up and walked out without waiting for him. Jacob left in silence, without looking back at me. I didn't smile. I didn't clap. I just took a deep breath, stood up, and walked out of the courtroom. I didn't look back as I walked out of the courthouse. Everything I needed had been made clear. I was no longer Gregory's wife, no longer the silent shadow in a sham marriage, no longer the silent ATM that had been used for 30 years. I was Claire, independent, free, and for the first time in a long time, guilt-free for choosing myself. A few weeks later, I heard that Gregory and Vanessa had moved in with Jacob. I wasn't surprised. Vanessa had never had a stable career, and Gregory had exhausted all his resources. They had nowhere else to go, and Jacob, despite his attempts to be moral, had ultimately succumbed to the consequences of blind loyalty. Things began to fall apart quickly. Vanessa, used to living on a budget, and Jacob's wife, Emily, began to have tensions after just a few days. Emily was orderly and private, while Vanessa liked to meddle in everything, from how to raise her grandchildren to how to spend money at home. Vanessa's daughter, Andre, also came to live with her. A 27-year-old with no stable job, sleeping until noon, living on social media. Every day was a small war in this three-generation house. Arguments, door slams, reproachful looks. Jacob began to have trouble sleeping and looked haggard at work. I had nothing to do with any of this, but Emily, who had never interacted with me before, started calling. At first to ask about Mason's health, then to share increasingly long lines of complaints. "Claire, I can't take it anymore," Emily said in a late-night call. "They took up my space, my time, my breath. Vanessa sold my wedding earrings to buy something for my daughter without telling anyone. I didn't say much. I just listened. I knew Emily's anger wasn't just about the little things. It was about feeling violated, being erased, just like I had felt. A few weeks later, I heard that Andre had shoved Mason over a small argument, leaving him with 2 stitches in his forehead. Emily panicked, took her son back to her mother's house, leaving Jacob alone with his father and his second family. Gregory, already weak from the stress, began to fall ill. Every time the hospital called Jacob to sign papers, Emily refused to go with him. The resentment that had built up over time had made her unable to sympathize. Vanessa gradually revealed her true colors, no longer pretending to be gentle. She became irritable, controlling, demanding every penny of Gregory's pension. Andre would constantly scold him for dragging the whole family down. "I used to think you were the coldest person I knew," Jacob said in a short phone call. "But now I see you were just protecting yourself, and you were." I didn't say anything, just hung up. Not because I was angry, but because I knew he had finally learned his lesson. A month later, I received news that Gregory had been hospitalized for a stroke. Vanessa disappeared shortly after, along with Andre, taking his bank cards and laptop. Jacob was nearly devastated. Gregory survived, but he could no longer speak clearly nor stand up. Jacob called me, his voice cracking. "Mom, I don't know what to do." I just said, "I'll figure it out. I'm an adult, and this is the family I chose to protect." I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't apologize too late. They had chosen their path, and now they are walking on it without me to fix it. I don't remember the first day my new life began, because in fact, it wasn't a brilliant start, but very small, very slow, very gentle steps. It was just a Sunday morning. I woke up early, made a cup of Earl Grey tea, opened the window to let the sunlight into the kitchen, and suddenly laughed when I heard the birds singing outside. No more sighs from the other room. No more cold breakfast or approaches. Just me and the gentle silence. I started to rewrite my life as if it had never existed. I signed up for a photography class at the local community center, where I met new friends, each with a story. Some had just lost their wives, some had just divorced, some had been single for more than 10 years. But they all had one thing in common. They still wanted to live, really. I started to carry my camera everywhere. At first, it was just walks along Green Lake, taking pictures of fallen leaves on the sidewalk, small boats drifting quietly. Then came trips farther afield, to Oregon to watch the sunset over the ocean, to Montana during the snowmelt, and back to Maine, a place I dreamed of when I was an accountant, just to take a picture of a maple forest glowing red in October. I started an Instagram account named it Gray to Gold. My photos weren't particularly artistic, but they were real snapshots. The light filtering through a cup of morning coffee, the wrinkles of an old lady knitting in the park, the hands of a child swinging on a swing. Ordinary moments, but complete. As each day passed, I found myself feeling less bitter. I still remembered the past, not denying it, but I no longer let it define me. One day, at a small exhibition for photography students, a woman standing next to me looked at a photo of a foggy bridge and turned to me. "This photo is so gentle. Did you take it? I feel like it has a bit of loneliness, but is very solid." I smiled, maybe because the person who took it has also just learned to stand firm on her own. I returned to being someone's mother, someone's wife, or the keeper of the fire in an empty house. I was just Claire, a woman who was enjoying every last page of her life the way she chose. Independent, free, and not needing anyone's recognition to feel fulfilled. I learned to cook dishes I had never dared to try when I was living with Gregory. Mushroom risotto, strawberry tart, pan-fried lamb. The kitchen was no longer a place to do my duty, but a place where I showed my love for myself. I didn't hesitate to spend money on a good bottle of wine. Didn't hesitate to withdraw money to travel. I deserved it. And sometimes on a beautiful afternoon, my nephew, Mason, came to visit. He laughed, ran around, and urged me to take pictures of him every time he made a funny face. I printed those pictures, put them in wooden frames, and hung them all over the living room. Next to them were pictures I took of the forest, the sea, and smiling strangers. All of these are memories I created myself. No one can take them away. I don't know how many years I have left, but now I live each day without regret, not to prove anything to the world, but simply because I chose myself, and this time I won't let go. One late autumn afternoon, I sat on the porch, holding an old book in my hand, Mason playing with the neighbor's dog in the yard. The sunlight slanted gently through the red-orange leaves, casting pale spots of light on my hand as if whispering something. I no longer thought about what I had lost, but about what I had kept, courage, sanity, and love for myself. I stood up and took out an unmarked envelope. Inside was an old photo, Gregory and I, when we were young, standing together in the park on our wedding day. On the back was a short line. If there is a next life, I hope you are kind enough not to hurt me. I love you. I sat down, silent for a while. No tears, no laughter. I folded the photo, put it in the wooden box next to the old mementos. It was time to close, not with anger, but with peace. Mason called me, "Grandma, look at me flying." I laughed, raised my camera, and took a picture. That photo, a child in the sunset, the sun behind him shimmering like the last light, became my favorite photo in my life. You have just finished reading Ashes Can Also Bloom, a story about betrayal, awakening, and rebirth. If you have ever experienced a pain that seems insurmountable, remember, what remains in the end is not the memory, but how we rise from it. How do you feel about Claire's journey? Leave a comment below. Share with me and those who need a little light in the dark days.